Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Monday. It is November the 3rd. It feels like this last week did not end, even though I tried to take some time away. And I wanted to go out there and have some family days, which I finally actually did on Friday. We went for a nice little hike and we saw some deer. Kids were out there. We discovered a waterfall within walking back distance to our backyard. So that was all really cool. And I appreciate you guys' patience when I wanted to just take a day, which is lucky because I didn't get a weekend off. Our FBI director decided that the things you do for love might mean reporting for booty. I can't not say it. It's just too funny. It's just a silly thing to do. When your boss calls you to the carpet, that's what they call it in the military, you get called up front and you get your butt chewed out in front of everybody. And the people that need to know that you screwed up, and you know that you screwed up, and you know why you screwed up, and you know what it was that made you screw up. And then you turn around and go, boss, let me give you a scapegoat. I'm going to bring you the head. Here's the head of the person that's in charge. This is who did it. Wasn't me. And then you turn around and do the same thing again. It turns out you might not have learned your lesson. I don't enjoy. No, that's not true. I don't always enjoy using our federal agencies and punching bags. I don't always need to have these people out there screwing up. If there were things to celebrate, and there are a few things, then we'll do it. But if you're going to screw up publicly and you're going to embarrass yourself and everybody around you, if you're going to make light of the service of millions of global war on terror, GWAT veterans, many of whom who lost a limb, I know people in our audience that lost facilities in their body. Many of us have friends who lost their lives in service to this country. If you're going to go out there and tell us that your 25-year-old, 26-year-old little girlfriend is 10 times the American that any of these people are, that's a heavy burden. Maybe it's because you're a piece of garbage. And maybe it's because you're falling all over yourself for the first steady girl that's ever held your hand. I used to warn guys like this. Folks, if you don't know, I was in the military. I was enlisted. I knew a bunch of 17, 18, and 19-year-old boy men. They were men legally. They could vote. They could do man things. They could buy cars and guns and do all kinds of other stuff. They could get married. They could make babies, even if it was ill-advised. But the number of those guys that would run out there immediately and marry the first girl that held their hands, and then that girl held somebody else's hand, and then somebody else's hand, and then they found out that their new wife that they met at airborne school, who they only knew for 2 weeks, was out there sleeping with everybody else that came through airborne school. Men, we make bad decisions when we don't think with the right head, as my buddy Stephen Friend likes to say. There's a really good reason for being married when you're in senior government service. And I would actually argue that it's probably a danger. It's probably a national security problem to be a single and dating FBI and or national security employee. It just leaves you open. You can get honeypotted by a James O'Keefe. You can find somebody from a foreign intelligence service. You can have all kinds of things go your way. It could just be that it exposes and embarrasses us, but it really could be a leak and a problem in national security. And if it turns out that you're doubly interested in lifestyle and money, and you're some sort of like cut rate, not funny Tom Haverford from Parks and Recreation, maybe we should rethink this one. This is a bad decision. So we've got some real fun things to do. Like I said, my weekend did not end. And if you guys saw me on the Alex Jones show last night, great. If you've been following me and you are a generally speaking person on the political left, welcome to the program. I've seen a lot of people follow me with bios that are not familiar, and that's okay. What we do here is not Republican, and it's not Democrat. We are equal opportunity crappers on people in government and in power. And right now, the Republicans have it, so they get a lot of what I have to say. And Democrats got it when they were in charge. I don't like the way that our country is run. I'm not going to tell you how to run your family. I'm just going to tell you what I know is going on, what I think about it, and then you can make your own mind up. And if you don't agree with me, we can agree to disagree because we can be adults. It turns out in this country, people who identified as liberal historically didn't require that you had fealty to their ideology. And I like that. That's the classical old school liberals, the ones who said, I don't like Nazis. I think they're disgusting. I think that the ideology that they espouse is atrocious, and yet I love America, and I love the idea that we have the freedom of speech and that we can let our ideas speak for themselves. And so if a Nazi is going to have a parade, then they have a right to protest and to assemble and to petition for a redress of grievances just like any of us, even if it's ugly. And what we're going to do is we're just going to point out with our words and our ideas, which are better, that those are really, really awful ways to operate. And people will go, yeah, those people suck. Let them embarrass themselves. Give them enough rope to figuratively hang themselves in the rhetorical sense. No big deal. That's not going to be a problem. We used to know that as a country. So if you are somebody who is a liberal and you're not espoused and dipped in ideology and you can actually hear thoughts that don't necessarily agree with you and you think, all I want to do is challenge you. I just want to challenge your thoughts. And what I find out is that regular people all over this country are actually okay with that. They don't mind having people disagree with them in real life. They just go and they go, I don't agree with that. It's like, that's fine. Yeah, we don't have to come to blows. We're not going to fight this out. This doesn't need to require us to have a civil war. We can all agree that hypocrisy is gross, no matter who does it, if we're being honest operators. So if you don't pick a team, welcome to the program. That's what we're going to do. Today, we're going to lead off with a sponsor. In full disclosure, which if you're new here, you'll find out. We sell advertisements because your attention span is worth money to people that are willing to pay me to do what I do. And so I take money for that, and I only endorse and take money from products that I will actually use in my own house. So I'm really specific about it, and I turn away advertisers all the time. One of the people that I did not turn away is Cove Pure. They're a water purification company. CovePure.com/KYLE is the website. There's a link in the show description. I'm not really a guy who thought about tap water. I married someone who did. There are all kinds of studies about nastiness that comes out. I've done a complete 180 on whether I cared about it, and mostly it came from living in Central Texas, where a lot of our water table has sulfur in it, and it stinks, and it's yellow, and it looks gross, and I don't like my kids bathing in it sometimes. But I definitely don't like them drinking it. They have an amazing countertop filtration system at Cove Pure. You guys can check it out. We have one sitting in the bathroom for my children upstairs. They're able to push a button and get purified water that doesn't have pesticides, and it doesn't have hormones in it, and it doesn't have a bunch of pharmaceuticals that have gone downstream. It has a 99.9% filtration rate. It actually says TDS right there on the thing, which is the total, I think, displaced or dissolved solids. So you can get all the junk out of there. You can see how much junk is in your water, and that's great. It's a 4-stage filtration. It lasts for a long time. They have 2 different filters. One of them lasts like 3 to 6 months. The other one lasts something like 9 months to 2 years, depending on your volume of use. I like that because I hate buying lots of filters. Again, covepure.com/KYLE. That's the website. The really neat thing about this is that for the same price as a lot of these gravity drip systems, and I've got a Berkey and I've got some other stuff that would do water filtration, for the same price, you actually get a machine that will give you warm water. It'll give you lukewarm water or tepid water. It'll give you cold and cooled water, and it can give you boiling hot water if you want a cup of tea. That's really nice. Save $200 right now if you guys want to buy their system. It looks great. It's easy to use. It takes about 15 minutes to set up, which is also really nice. You just push buttons and it tells you what to do, and you're just following a little infographic that is understandable by regular people. You guys have a choice in whether you want decent water or just the crap that comes out of the tap. And a lot of times it is very, very gross. You guys know you're more about your drinking water where you live than I do, but I'm telling you, mine was nasty. Save $200. It's covepure.com/KYLE. Today's program is going to be a lot of fun. I'm glad you guys are along for the ride. So some of you guys were here for Thursday's show, and that was one of our more downloaded shows over on Spotify, so shameless plug there. If you guys have not seen the show on Spotify, it's the easiest way to get the replay. It's better than YouTube, it's better than Rumble, it's way better than X. The monetization is better for me, but the actual functionality of it, you can go between audio and video. KyleSerafinShow.com. If you ever want access to our locals community, and God bless all of you that support us over there, KyleSerafin.com. You can do it as a free member. You can come in as a dissident. You can do a paid membership as well. And then lastly, if you are watching on one of the other video platforms, make sure you like it, make sure you share it, make sure you subscribe to those channels, because that does actually help boost the signal here. And when you guys comment and you interact with the videos, it bumps up the algorithmic thing. We're very grassroots here. I don't know if you guys know this, but people can buy viewers. I get emails all the time. Would you like to buy 100,000 views for your videos? No, I don't. You know why? Because I'm not a liar. I don't want to tell my advertisers that I have people watching that are just bots in India. That grosses me out. And that goes to a broader principle, and it's the discussion about hypocrisy. I hate it. There's a guy that's currently in the public light right now that's looking to run for office. His name is Gavin Newsom. You guys heard this the other day. I'm going to reiterate it. I didn't like when Gavin Newsom locked down the state of California, which was the home of my birth. That's where I was born. And I spent time in California. I lived in San Francisco. I went back after college to San Francisco. I lived in San Diego or the outskirts of it. I lived outside of Los Angeles. I worked for Warner Brothers for a little while. I know a little bit about California. At least I did. It's been about 20 years since I've really wanted to be in that space. The governor of California, interesting cat. He's got some nasty ideas, and he does have this sort of hypocritical, rules for thee, not rules for me. I think everybody on all sides of the aisle can look at it and go, yeah, that's gross. It's actually really nasty. It's nasty that you shut down small businesses and then you went to a place called French Laundry and you got caught on camera. And he really hasn't had to deal with that scandal, at least in a while. He's still the governor. When he runs for national office, which we expect, it's going to be ugly. It's going to get gross. And he's going to have to answer for those scandals. And that's fair to me. That's reasonable. We all should have to answer for this. I don't care if you're Nancy Pelosi going into a salon or whether you're Kash Patel flying in a private jet that the American taxpayers owned. We had some wild developments since the last show that we did, which was on Thursday morning. Now, if you guys remember, one of the things that I wanted to do was do a reveal of how I knew this. What did I know about the jet situation and when? And then I went out there and did this quote unquote reveal moment, right? This is the flight logs. These are publicly available. I've been following this for 3 years. What I found out is that senior executives in the FBI's Hoover building, they took my bait. They took the troll and they got my briefing. They were rolled all the way along, watching live as we did the reveal of who our 7th floor source was. And it was none other than Kash Patel. And they MF'd it. That's really funny. Yes, gentlemen who are sitting there and listening to it. I know about you. I know what you're doing. I know that you're watching. I'm not going to be stopping this. And I don't even need people inside the FBI, even though I have people inside the FBI that talk to me because we're friends, explaining the dynamics of what goes on in that agency. I still have something like 6 to 8 times as much experience in the FBI as the director or the deputy director. Combine them, I have 5 times as much as them combined. Is that hilarious? It makes me laugh to no end. And we had places like the Daily Beast, which is a left-leaning outlet. I've had CBS reach out to me, MSNBC, NBC. I haven't heard from CNN yet, but at one point we will. I'm sure of it. The bulk word. A lot of people that lean left are looking over and going, hey, that FBI whistleblower guy's really onto something here. He doesn't like hypocrisy. It turns out that I've been very consistent about this, and I intend to be consistent about it. But there is something very funny. If you guys were on our call-in show on Thursday night, you found out that the Daily Beast called me Kash Nemesis. And that is quite funny. And rather than let that sit and keep his mouth shut and take his licks like a man, which is what you're supposed to do when you get called out, chewed out, you've done something wrong, the guy went out and doubled down on being stupid. And so he got called to the carpet at Mar-a-Lago. That happened on Friday. There was a big Gatsby-style party that happened, and that looked pretty gross, too. The optics of it are really bad. Donald Trump doesn't seem to care. He can get away with that. He's a billionaire, and he's Donald Trump. Everybody sort of expects that Donald Trump craps on a golden toilet. So if he has a big party while other people are, like, losing their SNAP benefits, you're like, yeah, that's Donald Trump. That's what he would do. Some of the people that were in attendance probably look a lot worse for wear. The guy that got called to the carpet down there on that night, he decided to hang somebody out to dry. He gave Donald Trump a head and fired someone that spent 27 years inside the bureau. That's an interesting move. That has been his signature and go-to move, which is why this meme keeps getting updated. Have you guys seen this? This is the meme that, one of the suspendables put together. It's the Grim Reaper knocking on doors with bloody results. J6 Jensen, COVID Evans. They call it MAL Driz, Mal Driz. That's Brian Driscoll. Cash's pilot, Chris Meyer. Walter Gardena. The Neil Team 6, the folks that took a knee for BLM in 2020, in June and July of 2020. Steve Palmer is the most recent victim of this situation. Kash Patel's door is still waiting to be opened. And the reason it's waiting to be opened is because he keeps doing stupid things. The FBI director's jet has been the bane of FBI directors since I can remember. It goes back before Robert Mueller, but we even found this deep pick here Mueller often uses the FBI jet, which was bought for counterterrorism purposes. The Bureau spent something like $60 million on this aircraft. And the entire purpose of it was to fly counterterrorism teams around. And in this particular article, which by the way was written by John Solomon, for all of you guys who love him, he used to write for the Washington Post. It says when the FBI went to Congress this spring to provide an additional $3.6 million in the war spending bill for its Gulfstream 5, it said the money was needed to ensure that the aircraft, packed with state-of-the-art security and communications gear, could fly counterterrorism agents on crucial missions to Iraq. I have friends that were on those mission sets. You've heard Kurt Suzdak. He spent a significant amount of time over there. Brian Driscoll probably is one of those guys that did. A lot of the HRT, the hostage rescue team guys, spent time in Iraq. They went into Afghanistan. They were doing what's called SSE, or sensitive site exploitation. We attached operators, guys who were highly trained from the FBI, but also federal agents, to go and do data exploitations on the sites inside the various parts of the war on terror. You don't have to agree with the war on terror to know that these guys went out there and did that. And that was the reason why Congress greenlighted this jet. It's funny because there's Mueller catching a little bit of flack from it because this is 2007. That's the Washington Post, and that's George W. Bush's FBI in theory. The previous FBI director got removed. Sessions was removed for misuse of the private jet. Jim Comey had all kinds of scandal brought up by his use of the private jet. Chris Wray, whistleblower articles, helped out by me and my disclosures to Congress, had problems because of the private jet. The private jet is the bane of the FBI director's existence. Now, the good thing about Robert Mueller is that at this point in time, even though he flew for official purposes, Mueller was actually seen regularly in regular commercial aircraft when he did private travel. But sometime between 2011, when the study was commissioned, and 2013, we started catching a move towards making them 100% on the private jet. And it's not congressional mandate, and there's no law that says it. It's an executive agency policy, which is why this is hypocrisy. I put together some fun stuff for you guys. And I think that we should be talking about it in a second. We're going to get deeper into it. First, I want to just run through a series of these relevant news stories of the day, if you will. Put the chat up here on. Here's some stuff that's going on. Many of you may not realize this because you don't work for the government, but November 3rd, that means we are now coming up on the longest. We're just a few days shy of the longest government shutdown in history on record, which will be 35 days. We're almost there, and we'll get there, most likely. I think they're going to go ahead and push it there. Both people want the optics. Trump said the shutdown is going to end when the Democrats give in. If they don't vote, that's their problem. That's almost a calloused idea, except I don't think he's wrong. I think you can't give in at this point, and I think also that they should own it. I think the Republicans should just say, we like small government, and government's going to be smaller when we have a shutdown. That'd be fine. Kind of sucks for the people who don't have a paycheck. But if you guys are new to the program, I went 14 months without a government paycheck. I was suspended without pay in June of 2022. And it went on all the way. I had a couple of months before that were unpaid. So in a period of 16 months, 14 months of them were unpaid. They paid me for about 6 weeks in between. That's not great. It's a bummer. I actually had to sell my house. It's the reason why I do a podcast now. So I do have more empathy than most people. But I do think the Republicans should just say, yeah, this is our thing. We're shutting it down. We believe in small government. It'd be nice if the people of principles actually had those principles. Or you could do the Gavin Newsom thing and say one thing and kind of do the other. They're kind of doing the Gavin Newsom thing, hence my dislike for all of the politicians. There's also a potential trade war that's continuing in China. I don't know whether it's full blown or whether we're just sort of all dealing with sort of like a Cold War status. But prices have gone up. For those of you that have cried about tariffs or not cried about tariffs, I've lost money because of Trump's tariff policy. And I don't cry about it, I understand, but we've lost advertisers, and not an insignificant amount of advertisers. We've lost 5 figures a year because of what they do. So that's not nothing. And yet, China is a real problem, and we really need to rein it in. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because Trump says, we're always watching China. This is CBS News reporting it. He said days after touting a truce with China, he said that they're always watching us and we're always watching them. China is the biggest threat national security-wise for this country. So we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about one of the sort of ongoing, maybe confusing pieces of the puzzle with the Trump administration. Let's just touch the New York Times article here. File access to FBI files in the Charlie Kirk case apparently are being restricted, but that is actually a broader question of like intelligence fiefdoms that continues to go on, where Patel and Bongino are resisting working with what should be their government partners. And that's Joe Kent on the screen right there. Joe Kent is just representative of a classic, let's call it just government-wide issue with anybody taking a little piece of the pie. If you guys don't understand this, when people take over a government agency, they will have all these grand ideas. They may say that they're going to do really, really good things. They may have all of the ideas, but once you get in there, the culture is very simple. Nobody in government is rewarded because they shrunk the size of the department. It's unfortunate for us because we'd really like to see that happen, but they're just not. They don't ever see any incentive to make an agency smaller than it was. Building your budget is how you go out there and tout how great you are and what you've done. And so what we're seeing is this sort of like classic, I'll call it dick measuring. There's no other really way to do it. It's a pissing match between the director of the FBI and then essentially ODNI, and Joe Kent's kind of stuck in there as the head of the National Terrorism Center. It may not be obvious to people how intelligence works in our government, so I was going to go over a brief kind of dive. I had some social media requests. Hey, can you tell us a little bit about ODNI and what it is and why it exists and how it exists? And it makes sense because it's actually not immediately obvious for regular people who wouldn't otherwise understand it. Let me read you from this story so you understand the background. And it's actually broader than this. As I understand it, you've got Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard representing the interests of the intel community and saying, hey, we'd like to go and look into this thing. Charlie Kirk is one example, but there are other problems that they have, including the most recent takedown that happened on Friday, which all relates to the sort of jet nonsense, because as I understand it, and just looking at it, you can see that the FBI did a terrorism takedown of people in Michigan for optics as a narrative change. By the way, it didn't work at all, as you can expect. What they may have actually done, though, is endangered some of the other equities that are out there in the national intelligence space. And that's a really dumb thing to do. So let's talk about this real quickly. This article was written by a number of people, including Maggie Haberman. I know that Trump occasionally reads the New York Times. It's worth stating. The head of the National Terrorism Center, Counterterrorism Center, examined FBI files in the last week to investigate whether the man charged with assassinating Charlie Kirk had support from someone else, a foreign power, or another entity, according to multiple people with knowledge of the matter. The inquiry by Joe Kent, who is the director of the Counterterrorism Center, alarmed Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. Why would that be? Fiefdoms. Minor, politically appointed princes. Mr. Patel and other senior officials believe that Kent was overstepping and treading on the FBI's responsibilities, potentially interfering with their investigation and the prosecution of the suspect, whose name is Tyler Robinson. The FBI doesn't have a case yet, or at least they haven't brought a case forward. There's no federal indictment. So the entirety of the FBI's work in this case right now is what's called a local law enforcement support. Take it for what it's worth. They haven't actually charged anything. The supporters of Mr. Kent say he was doing his job, running down leads, making sure no foreign government or domestic groups were linked to the death. As you guys remember, there was a push to declare Antifa as a national domestic terrorism organization, and there's a question of whether or not they can tie them to foreign money. They very well may be able to do that, but they don't need to do anything that has to do with Charlie Kirk to tie it in. They need to go to the Portland files from 2020, and I only know that because I worked in Portland for 2 weeks on a surveillance mission where we were gathering intel on the Antifa cells, and they had embedded and undercover agents that were working in there at that time. We're 5 years out. They're going to be fine. They're not there anymore. Wouldn't it make sense that you would go out there with the stuff you already have? And by the way, the associations I'd be looking at are the National Lawyers Guild, who is clearly working in concert with the people that were pushing political violence on the street. That seems really straightforward. And if you live in Portland and you're encouraging that, like you're part of the problem, you're bringing on issues that are going to come back and haunt you eventually. That's why your city is getting all beat up. And for all the people that were out there saying, oh, Portland's beautiful still, it's not. It's covered with homeless people and bums, and it's not safe to walk in if you're a young person. And I kept seeing like families that were one child, and they were always like sheltering their child, guarding. That's not a good way to live. I had my kids running free in a field on Friday morning, like running out there, like chasing down deer. That's a great way to live. And we live in an urban area. Like we're not far from Austin, Texas, for whatever it's worth. It is an opportunity. All right, the Senate confirmed Mr. Kent as the director of counterterrorism in July. He's one of the closest advisors to Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, shares her focus on traditional terrorism groups as well as drug cartels, which they argue is a grave threat to the United States. So why would you push this away? And what does it look like? Let's go to ODNI. This is ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. This is a post 9/11 construct. This is a thing that didn't used to exist, but once you understand what it does, then you can help understand why there's this friction there. And people should understand what it is that we're all paying for because this is our government dollars. Most of these people are considered mandated essential workers, and they are currently working through the government shutdown, as you'd expect. What it says on their website, we unify our intelligence community toward a stronger, safer nation. Well, how does that exactly play? Because Tulsi Gabbard is not Kash Patel's boss. It works like this. The intel components of the various intel agencies, some of them answer directly to ODNI, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, and some of them just have an intel cadre that get their tasking and their work. And this is classic government dysfunction, folks. This is one of the reasons why I hate government so much. Imagine you work for a company, it doesn't matter what company, and let's say that there are people that are inside of your organization that are maybe even on your team. Let's say you run a finance team. I can think of that. I was on a finance team. And let's say that your accountants all work for the finance department. But all of your analysts that are doing the analysis of what the accountants come up with, all of them actually answer to another group, or maybe even another corporation. And so you have employees that work for you, that are paid for by you, that are not answerable to you and are not tasked by you. Do you guys understand how weird that would be? It's a truly strange thing to look over and go, okay, well, I would like you to do the following things and focus on this. And they're like, yeah, boss, but also that's not really my job. And you can't say otherwise. That's the issue with ODNI. ODNI is the managing agency that looks over what's called the USIC, or the intelligence community, also known as the U.S. intelligence community, so USIC. There are two independent agencies. That's the ODNI itself, which actually has its own personnel and its own sort of mission set. And then there's the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. I'm just reading from their org chart here to kind of help you do it. There are 9 military intelligence components that are underneath, and that's going to be the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, which is massive. The National Security Agency, which also falls out underneath defense, that's a NSA. You've got the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or NGA. NRO, which is the National Reconnaissance Office. They do mostly things like geoinformation and so on, maps and whatnot, satellite imagery. Then you've got the intelligence component of each of the 5 services. So Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force, they all have their own intel components, enlisted and officers and so on, and civilians. So there's a ton of these things that require coordination. This is why we have such a dysfunctional animal. And then you also have additional counterintelligence and intelligence components built into the Department of Energy. They have an Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence. I used to work with those guys in DC. There's only a couple of them, mostly former FBI and contractors at that point. That may not be the case today, but it was then. Departments of Homeland Security has their Office of Intelligence and Analysis. They have like their actionable ends, but they have their intel component. The Coast Guard has their own intelligence. And then, of course, you end up with the DOJ's FBI, which all the analysts answer to ODNI tasking. The DEA has the National Security Intelligence Office inside DEA, so they have an intel component doing drug enforcement. You've got the State Department's Bureau of Intelligence. You've got the Treasury Department's Intelligence and Analysis Units. So all of these people who all work with other bosses, they have a chain of command, they have a military, they have a civilian chain of command, whatever it may be. They all work within an agency. They all get paid by that agency. They all have a job title within those agencies. And then they also get priorities and directives coming from Tulsi Gabbard's office at ODNI. Do you guys understand why, like when I tell you that I hate government, it's because of the inefficiency. And all of this plays into this dick measuring power play that our current director is out there because he's trying to hold on to every little bit of his job rather than saying, let's accomplish the mission. Let's do a great job first, and then we'll worry about who gets credit. By the way, that's how functional teams work. I'll give you more on that in just one second. Let me just talk about my friends over at Patriot Coolers. They're our longest sponsor. They've been supporting the Kyle Seraphin Show since the beginning. really going back to February of 23. The website is patriotcoolers.com. They make a great product. They're comparable to a Yeti or to anybody else in the main space, but I think their stuff is more modular. I think it's just as durable. I think it's well thought out. I like that it says Patriot on it. It's got 13 bars. Most of the cups will end up having 50 stars on the bottom of it. They're just nice products. They are about the same price as everybody else. They didn't raise their prices when the Chinese tariffs kicked in. And they work. We use them every single day. I've got probably a dozen of their mugs right now. I bought them all with my own cash. We have their that 50-quart cooler you're seeing on the screen. We carry it back and forth in our minivan every single day. We go to Costco and keep our frozen goods frozen. In fact, that's the exact one I have right there, the gray one. It's either gray or tan. Fantastic stuff. PatriotCoolers.com. Use my name, promo code Kyle, Kyle, 10% off every time you guys go there. If you're looking for an order for your company and you want to have it laser etched and engraved, you can hit me up at info. It's info@KyleSerafin.com, info@KyleSerafin.com. I'll connect you with Gary, who's their brand manager. They'll work with you. They're great people. They're out of Houston, Texas. They ship from an American warehouse. It's all easy to do. Vacuum sealed tumblers, the rotomolded coolers. They've got soft backpacks and lunch boxes and all that kind of stuff too. So check them out. Fantastic people, really good stuff. And they've supported us literally since the beginning. They are the OG sponsor of the Kyle Serafin Show. The first people that proved that we could monetize and we could carry things on here. I want you to understand this pissing match. I want you to understand exactly how nasty it is that these guys are fighting over it, because it goes to the Jet problem. It turns out what we're dealing with here is a guy that's acting like a child, an immature manager, if you will. I call it like an adult toddler. When you go out and you have to take credit for something, what it says is you don't have confidence in what you're actually doing. Your results could speak for themselves. It would be really easy. I ran a team of surveillance guys in the Bureau. I had anywhere between 6 and 10 agents working for me, even though we were the same pay grade, for me on a daily basis. And I've set up some rules. The rules were, we are going to do whatever the best idea is that is put forward by the group, and we're not going to worry about who gets credit for it. And if we don't do your idea, and let's say we do my idea, because I'm the boss, I'm the team leader, and it turns out that I was wrong, I'll come back and tell you personally that you were right, because I don't care. What I want to do is accomplish a mission. That's how leadership works. That's the way that I understand it. That's the way that I've worked. And I've always had people who've chosen to work with me because of that. And then we've all had bad bosses and bad managers, the ones that are really quick to claim credit, and they're the first one to blame you. And there's an example of that right here. This is what got picked up. This is why this scandal about the jet use, which was already scandalous and stupid, it's why it got worse over the weekend instead of getting better. And then he went out and made it personal about the girlfriend, and that even got dumber. So this is what we're going to talk about now. This is a story that was scooped by Bloomberg Law. I'm going to get in here and grab the article so I can quote from it, if you guys don't mind. Let's see here. Bloomberg, I believe the guy's name is Brandon Penn. I know I just opened this thing up, so 1 second here. There it is. Okay. So his name is Ben Penn. Sorry about that. BenPenn. Follow him over on X if you guys want. Ben, he's quoted in some of my stuff on the feed. Definitely look into him. Great story, great scoop. And he hit me up and he just said, hey, I've got a scoop that's coming and you might want to read it. This was on Saturday. I was driving to go get some burgers with my kids. I thought I was off work for the weekend, but I was not. The FBI forced out a senior official who was overseeing aviation shortly after FBI Director Kash Patel grew outraged about revelations of his publicly available jet logs. That's the key here. These were publicly available. We did a big reveal show on Thursday as a joke. We trolled the FBI and the FBI management, pointing out the FBI's director's girlfriend, whatever, showed all this stuff. I didn't have to hack anything. I don't need any sources. I just look at where the jet's going. And it looks like this. And look how much travel we're talking about here. They were publicly available with a publicly available tail number. It's ours. You guys can look it up. I have the FAA registration sitting on my screen as well. Stephen Palmer had been with the FBI for 27 years. He's a veteran of the FBI, became the third head of the Critical Incident Response Group, which includes FBI pilots and surveillance teams and the tactical units and so on, to be fired or removed in Patel's short regime there, adding to a year filled with retributive, I guess I'm saying that probably wrong, terminations. Retributive? Is that a word? I like the way it sounds. His exit was made official on Friday, and the replacement head of the Bureau's crisis management operations, including hostage rescue, it's already been posted on the website. Patel was angered by social media posts and news stories calling attention to his use of the jet where he arrived at State College. Let's go back a week ago yesterday. Actually, let's go a week ago Saturday. Patel got in the jet. It went to Andrews Air Force Base, picked him up. He flew to State College. That's where Penn State is. He watched his girlfriend sing. Then he flew to Nashville. Unclear if she was on the jet or not, but he went to Nashville to go spend the night with her. On the morning after, on Sunday, a week ago yesterday, he turned and flew down to San Angelo. You're seeing the flight logs on the screen right now for if you guys want to see it. It's up there. Flew to San Angelo, Texas. I'm told he went to go to a hunting ranch, that he was doing a luxurious hunting experience in Texas. I've also got friends who work on the SWAT program that said that there was basically a standing, what they call warno or warning order, that at some point in time, Patel was either going to go hunting down in Texas in the fall, or he was going to go up to Montana. And I guess he had two wealthy friends or options to go out there and do cool stuff. And look, hunting in Texas in the fall and hunting in Montana in the fall sounds really great. This guy just got back from a 1 week long golfing vacation in Scotland when he screwed up the whistleblower thing. Hence this. I love this. Somebody made this and sent this over to me. Chris Ray, James Comey, Kash Patel, they have what in common? Boom. They all hate whistleblowers. Why? Because whistleblowers upset the balance. They show that they're not loyal to the institution. They're not going along to get along. They're willing to people who are going to stand up and say things like, hey, guys, you're doing this wrong. What you're doing is immoral, illegal, unethical. You're in violation of policy, rule, or law. That's what I did. That's what my friends did. That's why we're all on the outs. That's why my buddy Garrett O'Boyle still getting paid at the wrong pay grade. My buddy Steve Friend not brought back in, despite an announcement going back 2 months ago now that he's going to be in full retro pay status and he's going to be made whole. He's not been. He's not even back working for the Bureau. They interviewed him for hours talking about me. Well, they were like, who do you know in media? He's like, oh, I know Dan Bongino, the deputy director. You know, because the guys that are running the FBI are media guys. And you'd think that if you had a bunch of media guys, they would know a little bit more about how media works and how stupid it is. So that's why this is so unforced. I'm going to do a video. I'm going to take a deep breath here. Let's do a quick little recap from Thursday's show. I played you something that I can't prove is me, but I think it's me. And then Patel went out this weekend and tweeted something, and I can't prove that it's me, but you guys know also who it is. And what I'm talking about is a specific line that's pretty funny. Uninformed internet anarchists. Add that to Kash Patel's nemesis, which the Daily Beast called me. Here's Dan Bongino calling it out. We live in these guys' heads. This podcast, which is not that huge, but we have a really smart audience, and we've got people on the 7th floor in the FBI who know I'm talking right to you. You guys keep screwing it up. You should have hired smarter people. You should have hired people who knew how to do the job. You should have just done the job and stopped trying to talk about doing the job. Here's Bongino doing it on Fox.
The place has taken a reputational hit. There is zero question about it. There were a lot of bad actors. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. So we had to fix it and rebuild public trust. One of the ways to do it is these cases of significant public interest that matter.
Well, what are those cases of interest? Dan didn't solve any of them. The pipe bomber case. Huge revelations coming out in that soon. I'm not teasing this out. This is not my story. I'm just telling you, I've been told that it should actually rattle our government. And there are multiple departments that probably shouldn't be in existence because of what's going on. The pipe bomber case continues to be one of the ugliest things that happened on January 6th. If you're on the left, if you're on the right, let's just say that dropping a bomb in the middle of a populated area, particularly our nation's capital, should not be an acceptable way that you communicate anything. All right? Can we just say that? You can't go drop bombs in the nation's capital. And then when you find out, what if you find out that members of our government were trying to push a narrative to do it? It is not foreign to people on the left or on the right that we have a government that will lie to us. That shouldn't be shocking. It was just a few minutes ago that I remember people on the left that were screaming about the FBI. Oh my God, they're going after black and brown people. They're going in and attacking Muslims. Yeah, they were. You thought it was because they were Muslims and they were bigoted. That's not why. I'm going to tell you the broader idea. I talked to people like Trevor Aronson. He's like center left, I would say. Trevor has come and sat in the chair, sitting right over here. Look, he sat in that chair right there, actually. That chair while we did a podcast. You guys didn't even know. And we did an interview for a couple hours and we talked about stuff. He's going to be mentioned in my lawsuit against the FBI director's, like in my response to the FBI director's girlfriend suing me. He's mentioned in there because we talked about honeypotting. We've talked about how the FBI does what's good for the FBI. This is what a self-licking ice cream cone is. If you're a government fan, realize that the government doesn't love you back. It never has. It never will. The government loves the government. The government does what the government always does, which is look after itself and its own interests. And that's why you have these pissing contests, because the people who are inside of them, they're all selfishly wanting to have their own promotion. So when you get called down to Donald Trump's house and you get told by daddy, hey, you did a bad job, here's your spanking, don't screw up again, don't embarrass me. How many of us have had that conversation with our kids? You're embarrassing me, don't do that again. If they turn around and do it again, which by the way they do because they're kids, that's what parenting is about. What if they're a grown-ass adult who just doesn't understand what hypocrisy looks like? Shouldn't that be problematic? Our FBI has gone after First Amendment liberties since its inception, since before its inception. The real FBI wasn't started until 1935. They claim a birthday of 1908 as the Bureau of Investigation. They lie about their birthday. How many of you have lied about simple things like your weight and your birthday? Are you being honest? Is that really a way to start anything or a new conversation with someone? They lie to you about their birthday, folks. They also don't want to tell you about the Palmer raids where they were violating the First Amendment. They don't want to tell you about going after people during COINTELPRO. They don't want to talk about the Red Scare. They don't want to talk about rounding up Japanese. If they ate crow for every single one of the crimes that our FBI that we all pay for has engaged in, there was no way that we would keep it around. It's freaking wild to me. It continues to be one of the wildest things that happens. They went after the Patriot movements, which were like militia movements in the 90s. So they were going after the right. They turned around, went after people that the left was defending, like Muslims and religious minority groups. They did things like Operation Flex, where they sent dudes into mosques right after 9/11 to try to round up guys that wanted to work out. And they were like, and by the way, don't you want to do some terrorism? And they were like, oh, maybe, I like working out. It's cool having a personal trainer for free. Like, I'm not sure if we want to go do terrorism. They did the same thing to Gretchen Whitmer's guys. Doesn't mean those guys didn't have bad ideas. It just means that the FBI set up, enabled, and made it a federal crime, that it wouldn't have been without it. And some of those guys were acquitted because of entrapment, because it was so egregious. And the same kind of stuff has been going on forever. I watched it with white supremacists. I watched it with people on either side of the aisle. It's not a political issue. The FBI just goes out there and serves its own interest. You guys got to understand that. I put together a clip, and I'm going to bury this guy who runs our current FBI, because he's as bad and maybe worse than anybody. And my concern is that Donald Trump said we've got a trade war and we always have our eye on China. Maybe he needs to have his eye on our FBI director a little bit more closely. And it's not just about long-range booty calls that are costing us, I don't know, $15,000 for the jet to take off, but probably more like 50 or 100 grand for the weekend. How much money does it cost? You're flying a protective detail. They all need hotels and per diem. You're flying an aircraft. That costs a ton of money. Minimum $10,000 an hour of flying. You're going to hangar that thing. You're going to pay runway fees. Everything it takes off. You're going to put up the pilot and the flight crew, because now they're all hanging out in Nashville. You got called down to the carpet by daddy, and the first thing you did was run to your girlfriend to cry about it, and then you went to social media and you made it worse. Here's a little video. I updated it, guys. I updated the mashup. This is the Cash Up Jet mashup. I don't know what the name of it is. This should tell you exactly what we need to know. Remember, this guy started talking about these private jets the first hour that he was the FBI director. We're going to lead off with footage from his little thank you celebration party with all of the rich people that wanted him to get into that space. And it is truly troubling to me, because it starts off as a joke, and 9 months later, here we are not laughing.
And the only reason I took this job was because my business acumen sucks. All these guys have their own private jets, so the only way I was going to get mine was becoming the director of the FBI. And I believe it.
Last time you were here, you had to leave early to take a jet to your vacation in the Adirondacks.
I'm just saying Chris Wray doesn't need a government-funded G5 jet to go to vacation. Maybe we ground that plane. $15,000 every time it takes off. Just a thought.
Minimum.
A G5.
Yes.
Now, let me just ask you this. The whistleblower tells us that you use the FBI jet to make that travel. Is that correct?
all of my travel, personal or work-related, is required to be done on FBI planes. That is longstanding policy, goes back well over a decade.
Well, this is a great point. Do you know why I have to use a private jet? Because Congress made it mandatory.
A G5. Yes.
You were rightly critical of the way that the previous FBI director used the FBI jet.
A G5 airplane. Yes.
The whistleblower also says that you pay only the lowest cost commercial ticket for that Atlanta to DC trip, which is, I don't know, what, $200 or something? When, of course, it costs $20,000, $30,000 to operate the jet. Is that correct?
The reimbursement that I provide is reimbursement that is set by OMB policy, and I follow that policy, which goes back over a decade.
I pay the commercial equivalent per the regs and the law.
No more frequent flyer bitch miles from my boy.
You wanted to ground Chris Wray's private jet travel that he pays for with taxpayer dollars to hop around the country.
Yeah, you want to know the difference? I live in Las Vegas. I'm allowed to go home. I didn't leave a congressional hearing early on an FBI jet to dodge questions.
A G5 airplane.
The whistleblower also says that you regularly require the jet, which is based in Manassas, to be flown to DC because, and I quote now, Wray doesn't like to sit in traffic.
Yeah, and what I've done with the use of the private jet is use Andrews Air Force Base versus Reagan National. That's what the other directors have done
Bottom line
to
here,
save the taxpayer dollars.
A G5 airplane. Yes. And lots of money.
On the following weekend, you attended a UFC fight in Miami, also on the FBI jet, right?
That's correct.
By the way, everyday FBI agents who are assigned in Washington don't get to fly home on a private jet.
G5.
So are you telling me that FBI agents who are assigned in Washington, but who may live in Charlotte, they get paid by the FBI?
Sometimes they do, yes.
Right.
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
You'd think that he would have gotten the message from getting called out. Instead, what he did yesterday was push the following out on his personal account, which has also got a silver check mark, which means it's a government official. And he's talking about his government work. So I would say that this is official statements by the FBI, from the FBI director to us, the public. And I'm going to read it in its entirety because it's absolutely insane. It makes this worse. Again, he was called out because he flew out there to go see his girlfriend sing in the middle of a government shutdown. And he's personally stated over and over again that this is a terrible way for us to spend money, that we should not be spending money on FBI director jets. So you'd think that he actually knew that this was the way that he got this job. Here he was on Glenn Beck. Before I read his statement, I want to remind you that he thinks pre-Kash Patel, pre-director Kash Patel, this is just regular Kash Patel, he believes that there is no reason for this jet. And he's talking to Glenn Beck. Glenn, I would like to hear you call him out too. You were out there and you agreed with this. You said at least this much money is being wasted.
Where, and I'm not saying take all their funding. I'm not the defund everything guy. I'm just saying Chris Wray doesn't need a government-funded G5 jet to go to vacation. Maybe we ground that plane. $15,000 every time it takes off. Just a thought.
Minimum.
$15,000 every time it takes off. So you know what kind of money is in play here, and you know how bad that looks. And we also had a lot of questions. And the reason that his girlfriend came into play is because people looked at her and they looked at her and they went, oh, well, she's super pretty. She obviously works for Israel. That's not a great conclusion. But it all came because they didn't give any Epstein files up. Remember? The Trump administration just absolutely shot themselves in the nuts because they went out and released something to Axios of all places, which I find interesting because apparently Donald Trump reads Axios every day. They leaked a memo to Axios hoping that they could quietly put years and years of speculation about Jeffrey Epstein to bed. And that if they would just go out there and say, hey, there's just nothing there and we're not going to prosecute anybody. And by the way, just don't even think about this. There's no reason to talk about it. And everyone went like, what? Are you kidding me? You guys made your careers on this thing. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel. You went in there talking about this high profile case. Now you want everyone to go, yeah, he killed himself and there's nothing to see here. And don't you think that I would have told you if there was? He made a hit on Rogan about it. Well, he also made this hit on Benny Johnson. Great assistance from some of the folks out there doing the deep dives. I appreciate this. Was sent to my DMs. Have you guys seen this? Because maybe this would be the trigger. Maybe we shut down the jet and then they can start being on it.
So are you, like, in closing here, I want to just be very clear. Republicans could get Epstein's list out now? Like, how would that process work?
Simple. One subpoena to the FBI. Give me the list. Oh, you don't want to give me the list and you're going to break the law and commit contempt of Congress? We're going to take your money. We're going to take Chris Wray's private jet. Taxpayer-funded G5 rides across the country to his Appalachian State vacation home, down to Georgia, and all over the rest of the place. That guy doesn't need a G5 government-funded jet. And the second you take that money, you get Epstein's list.
So are you, like, in closing here, I want to just be very clear. Republicans could get Epstein's list out now? Like, how would that process work?
You see? They could get it out right now? Holy moly. And that's why this is such a stupid, stupid move. Here's what he put out over the weekend. I'm going to get a sniff in. If you guys don't know, Kash Patel sniffs all the time for some reason. He said, I'm proud of the work of this FBI. Whatever happened to your FBI? I thought it was our FBI. I'm proud of the work of this FBI. We're taking violent criminals off the streets in record numbers, crushing the fentanyl crisis, dismantling cartels, saving children, hunting down terrorists, and so much more. By the way, they do this all the time. That's what the FBI does. In addition to doing other things that are really bad, the political stuff. Let me be clear. It's always this, the let me be clear. We will not be distracted by baseless rumors or the noise from uninformed internet anarchists and the fake news. Allow me to tell you that it is not a baseless rumor or noise when we go to publicly available facts and we look at the ADSB flight logs that register where your jet, which we pay for, has been going, and you called for it to be defunded. Let's just say that. But this internet anarchist is going to keep reading. I've always said, criticize me all you want. Have you, though? But going after people doing great work, my personal life, and those around me is a total disgrace. Nope, you put them into the space, and I'm going to show you why. This disgustingly baseless attacks on Alexis, that's Alexis Wilkins, his girlfriend, a true patriot, and the woman I'm proud to call my partner in life. Let's just hone in on that for 1 second. What is the legal status, folks, of my partner in life? Well, we do have this idea of partner for life. Partner for life is what we call a spouse in this country. There's legal status there. You get spousal privilege. You get to claim things on your taxes. A partner for life is, or your life partner, that's your spouse. That's the person you marry. That's your husband or your wife. A partner in life is nothing. That's a puppy. All right? That's your car. That's your motorcycle. It's a thing that can go away tomorrow. There's no requirement. They're not married. A true patriot and the woman I'm proud to call my partner in life are beyond pathetic. She's a rock-solid conservative, no evidence given, and a country music sensation. No one's ever heard her songs. Who's done more for this nation than most will in 10 lifetimes. For those of you who lost your limbs, for the average American that goes out there and serves or even pays your taxes, she's 26 years old. How much has she paid in taxes? How long has she been paying in taxes? She's done more for this nation than you have in 10 lifetimes. She's so blessed to have her in his life. Attacking her isn't just wrong. It's cowardly and it jeopardizes our safety. Well, you know what? Nobody attacks my wife because my wife is not part of the public sphere. She doesn't go out on News Nation or OAN or Fox or go out there. She doesn't get puff pieces written about her. She hasn't made herself part of the target system. So nobody goes after my family. When you put your family out there, then you make them part of the target-rich environment that we're all in. He says, my love of family will always be my cornerstone. Again, not married, no kids, no idea what he's talking about. His parents don't seem to live in the United States anymore. They didn't make it to his confirmation party. You'll never tear that down or keep me from them. And I and this FBI, not your FBI anymore, will stay laser focused on our mission and continue the reform we promised, which is basically none. Rebuilding the Bureau from the ground up by firing people because they embarrassed me. And our supposed allies staying silent. Your silence is louder than the clickbait haters. That's hilarious. I don't know who's supposed to talk. The right answer for him would have been to shut the hell up, but he hasn't figured it out. Who are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about the girlfriend who totally didn't make herself a target. She went out, and this is where it kicked off again. She decided to go do an interview after her boyfriend prematurely took down a quote-unquote ISIS terrorist cell in Dearborn, Michigan. So she made herself part of the conversation. When you are going to go out there on OAN or Fox or Newsmax or News Nation, if you want to go out there and talk, then people will attack you. I get it all the time. I get people talking about my hairline as if a 43-year-old man who has 4 kids cares about what you think about my hairline. I'm already married, folks. I already picked up my mate. I don't care if you don't like my hairline. When my hair falls out, and it probably will one day, I'll just shave it all and I'll move on with my life. And I'll be upside down head. I had a guy that I used to work with that we used to call that. You know, when you have like no hair on your head, but you have a big beard, upside down head, right? The hair's on the wrong side. Yeah, so what? I'm a grown up. Then you'll just say mean things and I'll just keep saying what I say. She made herself part of the discussion. And what the hell does she know about terrorism? She's 26 years old. How would she have any training experience in counterterrorism and national security other than sleeping with, I assume, I'm going to just assume that that's the case. Maybe they have a chaste relationship, but probably not. If we're just looking at the world, I'm happy to be informed otherwise. That'd be great. But the odds are that pillow talk with your boyfriend about national security stuff is not really considered expertise. How that gets you a spot on OAN? No idea. Here's the 90 seconds of the FBI director's girlfriends telling people to watch out for sleeper cells. Whoa.
You and I have talked about the border before. I don't think an American out there, unless there's some wacko lefty, could ever even lie or try to change the story. Joe left it open 4 years. Millions came in. Now thousands that want to do us harm are living amongst us. And thank goodness for Kash and the FBI stopping this one this weekend. But there's going to be more.
Absolutely. You know, this is the thing that we knew would happen with the Biden administration, keeping the borders open, not protecting our homeland, is we knew that we would get illegal immigrants coming in, you know, by the hundreds of thousands. I mean, quite literally, those are the numbers, committing violent crimes against American citizens, doing these horrible things that we see just ever so casually now, unfortunately, in the news. Of course, President Trump and his administration is cleaning up the streets, but that's even one thing. But the thing that I think gets a little bit to be a footnote is the fact that there are sleeper cells here that are planning these horrible attacks, these ISIS-style attacks like we saw thwarted in Michigan this morning. And, you know, this is the stuff that would have just been carried out under the Biden administration. And the fact that the Trump administration and everyone at the leadership level of these organizations are trying to fix it is exactly what we voted for.
Oh? Does she have a security clearance? Has she ever held one? Has she ever been in a skiff, unescorted? Does she have any idea? How many times does she say the word administration, by the way? That's not a really good tactic. Just a broadcaster to broadcaster sort of a free tip. Don't use the same word over and over again. When you hear it, you're like, I shouldn't have done that. Doesn't sound good. So that's just a thing. They're talking about an ISIS-inspired Michigan gang busted in a foiled terrorism plot that debated a Pumpkin Day attack, but actually didn't have a target and actually didn't have anything going on and actually didn't get coordinated with the Department of Justice and the United States Attorney's Office there in Detroit and in Michigan. Oops. And also stepped on the toes of the people that were trying to establish a potential ISIS link overseas. And as we understand it, we being me and the sources that I've been talking to, it sounds like that the other parts of OD&I were desperately trying to actually put this case together in a way that would actually be relevant. And instead, Kash Patel decided to go out there and do a bust because, wow, Halloween, everybody's got kids. That's a heartstring issue. I don't know who's advising him on the PR move, but jumping the gun on a BS case, which, by the way, the FBI was in their chat from the beginning. You had confidential human sources and undercovers that were working this aggressively. That's what they do, by the way. That's what the setup job is. We call it the playbook here. My friend Trevor calls it the Terror Factory. If you've never read it or if you've never seen it, do one of two things. Go read The Terror Factory. You can get the 10th anniversary edition. He used to talk about it. I think I've convinced him that it's not black and brown people the FBI is going after because of their skin color, but because of the fact that the FBI likes funding and it's easy, low-hanging fruit. Because they did the same thing to white people and so-called white supremacists and MAGA people and anti-governments and so on. Militia, violent extremists, they don't care. They're just going to grab somebody because they need to be able to get a win and they need to be able to get a budget. So that's what the playbook looks like. And if you don't want to read The Terror Factory, and I understand that, I'm not a book reader at these days. I don't have time. I'm too many periodicals, too many news stories. Go out there and watch the 10 to 15 minute TED Talk that Trevor gave. Just type in Trevor Aronson, TED Talk. You'll get it. You'll understand it in 10 or 15 minutes. And he gives you examples. They're the same examples, by the way, used by Dinesh D'Souza in the Police State movie, which I helped write the dialogue for and helped choreograph the action scenes for, and which I was the MC at Mar-a-Lago 2 years ago to the night on Saturday night. Isn't that something? 2 years ago, this last weekend, I was in Mar-a-Lago with Dinesh D'Souza giving me high fives, Dan Bongino shaking my hand and giving me a hug, Everybody in the MAGA world was super excited about the thing, and I was disappointed with the movie because they didn't make it a bipartisan answer. The answer has always been the same thing I've been trying to tell you all. I don't care if you're on the left or the right. The FBI is an existential crisis to American liberty. It's not about politics. It's about an agency that serves itself. It's always been like that. And what happens when we put an FBI director out there that has $5 million in Chinese stock from the e-commerce giant Shein? This is like a Temu type company, apparently. Why does he have $5 million in stock from that company when he self-admitted has crappy business acumen and he couldn't get a jet by being a business tycoon? Why did they pay him $5 million and why does he get to keep it? This story from Wired Magazine predates his confirmation. The reason he was able to keep it is because the stock is in a holding company, like a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands, apparently. And that means that there's no conflict of interest with freaking China, our single biggest geopolitical threat and the single biggest counterintelligence threat to the United States. How do you know, Kyle? Oh, because I worked on the floor where they had counterintelligence teams, and there were more counterintelligence teams dedicated to China than any other single threat. Russia was the second, and then behind that you had like a couple of others. You had an individual squad for North Korea, which is pretty small, and then you had what's called Global CI, which is everybody. Sudan, Israel, Iran, blah, 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 blah. Chinese squads were like numbering in the half dozen. They would have Chinese espionage. They'd have Chinese non-espionage. They'd have Chinese government, legal here. They'd have the Chinese establishment. They'd have the Chinese military intelligence. You name it, we had a squad for it. Every single facet of the Chinese government that was going to potentially coming into the United States. Why does Kash Patel have $5 million and for what? And what sort of consulting could he do in e-commerce for a company that is essentially a front corporation for the Chinese Communist Party that steals American technology, that rips off our design, takes our IP, stuff the FBI actually investigates? Why has he got $5 million? It's not enough to get a G5 airplane, but it might be enough to buy somebody's heart. Somebody who doesn't have children, somebody who doesn't have a wife. I'm just saying, this is a really problematic thing. And I'm a loud critic because of that. And I can see it when I start looking at this, because the most likely foreign nation state actor that would be involved in online threats that could radicalize people on the left or the right, by the way, they don't care. They just want instability in the United States. They're not like pushing an ideology that wins. They're pushing for conflict because it weakens the US, would be China. So if somebody is involved in the Charlie Kirk situation from the outside, the odds are, as I've talked to you guys about before, Chinese server farms that are able to run AI bots on all of the major social media networks, Discord, they've got them in Reddit, they've got them on Facebook. If you don't have to pay money, then they can put bots in there and they can fake being a person. That's problematic. I'm gonna give you guys some more fun stuff because we're not done with this. If you're listening right now, you may hear a Spotify ad. That's for the audio listeners. If you're listening somewhere other than Spotify, check us out. It's the best way because you can dance between audio and video. And you definitely should do that for that banger of the little mashup we had before. You can always support us over at KyleSerafin.com. You can do it as a free member. You could be a paid member of the community. Either way, I appreciate all of you. It lets you get involved in our call-in show. And then for those of you who are watching on the video platforms like Rumble and on YouTube, thank you. Make sure you guys have hit the like button. If you're listening this far in, you owe me a like. Doggone it. Just do it. You know what to do. Can we get a little deeper into this? Because the real scandal comes in when you do something like this. This happened over the weekend too. The guy blocked access to us tracking the jet. He didn't fix the problem, the reporting for booty game. What he did was shut this down and then fly to Nashville. Surprise! Director Patel, I can find you. I'm like that stage 5 clinger girl from the movie Wedding Crashers. I'll find you. There are lots of ways to track a jet that's owned by the public. Many. And the ADS-B transponder doesn't get turned off. If it does, that would be a wow, because they don't even do that for Air Force One, folks. November 708 Juliet Hotel, the United States government, Washington, D.C. registry. This aircraft is not available for public tracking per request from the owner and operator. Well, we're the freaking owner. So this is unacceptable. This is not how you do it. And shame on them. Seriously, big, big shame on them. I want to let you guys know that we're talking about somebody that he is going out to see that is being fluffed up into something that is not real. We can all see it. And the left is getting into it right now. That's the problem. They're going to point out that a government shutdown and the hypocrisy, they're not going to go out and call out Gavin Newsom because he's not going to do that. He's not that stupid. He got caught once. we're going to call out the hypocrisy from our own side, quote unquote, our own side. The left loves it. Suddenly, Occupy Democrats is acknowledging Kyle Seraphin as an FBI whistleblower. That's true. Here's the country music sensation. Do you know how many profiles I've had on Fox News that have done this about my courage or my bravery, or any of you have had? How many of you guys have served in the military? How many of you have done a law enforcement tour or a whole career? Did you ever have Fox News National tell you what a freaking hero you were? Now, I just heard that because the FBI director said it from his official account, this woman has done 10 times more in her life than you will do in your lifetime. And one of the things she did was she refused to move American flags from the bio of her Instagram account. Can you imagine the bravery? Tell me this isn't a complete put-up fluff job.
Country music artist and conservative commentator says that she was inspired to speak out after being pressured to remove the American flag from her Instagram bio. Alexis Wilkins is standing strong, refusing to bend the knee, where she says some big players in the music industry tried telling her that the flag could be viewed as partisan. Wilkins says she wasn't politically outspoken before college until coming face to face with this moment, which she says inspired her to speak out and defend her conservative values. Watch.
At some point, I figured out that the industry was not predisposed to being super kind to people who loved America. When I was told to take an American flag out of my Instagram bio, or that I had to support certain things or do certain things in order to get booked on tours, in order to get signed to a label, there are things that ultimately you have to give up, and I wasn't willing to do that and bend the knee to that. I didn't end up ultimately deleting it because I refused to. The industry and some figureheads in the industry were just saying that me having an American flag in my bio was going to be seen as partisan, which is ridiculous because this is the country in which we live. It's not partisan either way.
Look, Tommy, she said it perfectly, but also what a brave girl. I think it seems like there's many who have succumbed to that pressure from the industry, and bravo to her for refusing to do so.
Yeah, the industry is certainly changing, and this kind of goes along with ABC making some decisions, right? In 2020, they wouldn't have made those decisions. And in 2020, she might not have felt emboldened to leave the flag in her bio because really 2020 kicked off, and I guess maybe even before that with Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling for the anthem, this narrative where the left doesn't love America anymore. And there was that, I believe it was the New York Times that wrote that piece about how someone saw the American flag everywhere, and it was so jarring, and it was so debilitating to see.
The low notes, she can't get it. Ah, there you go. She's famous for singing the national anthem. That's what she does. This woman has done 10 times more than you could do in your lifetime. She's 26. She'll be 27 this month. So there you go. Now we can't say a 26-year-old pretty soon. I did go and pull some clips because one of the funny things is her attorneys have tried to argue she's not a public figure. Do you guys have any videos of you singing the national anthem at a Southwest Airlines terminal? Have you ever had a puff piece done about you on Fox News? Have you ever dated a government official and then been interviewed about what you guys have pillow talk on and talked about sleeper cells? Is that a thing? Have you ever had Megyn Kelly come on and talk to you about your boyfriend and how cool he is?
You mentioned you grew up mostly in Arkansas, but you did spend some time in England and Switzerland. You had sophisticated parents, and yet the country thing is real for you because...
Can I just say that she was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and the country thing is real for her, but she lived in Europe until she was 9. That's like a third of her life.
Notwithstanding this like international and exciting, presence for some of your childhood.
This is really hard-hitting stuff.
You grew up in heartland America for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I did, and it was my favorite place that I lived. People ask me, oh, did you love Europe? Did you love? And of course I did, but my favorite place to live was by far Arkansas. And so that's where the country music came from. My parents have always loved country music, and so that's what I grew up on anyway. Even before, in the UK and Switzerland, they didn't listen to a ton of country music back then. Now they do, and they have festivals and everything, and it's great. But back then they didn't, and so we would ship in country albums from the States. So it's what I grew up on, and in Arkansas, that's just what, that's the place that I spent the most time growing up.
All right, so this becomes relevant. I'm not just making small talk, because you will, in 2025 America, be accused of being an Israeli spy, that you work for Mossad. And near as I can tell, this is only because you're dating Kash Patel.
That's it.
That's probably it, to be honest. But I guess if we have to go to a second criterion, it would be that you've done work with PragerU, with our friend Dennis Prager, who is totally brilliant. And that institution has produced a lot of conservatives who are
totally true. It has produced a lot of conservatives. It's also got a CEO who's a former Israeli intelligence officer. Okay, whatever.
All over the internet. I think you might be the first of being accused of being an Israeli spy just because you've done a stint with PragerU. But do you think I have the entirety of the evidence, quote, against you spelled out here?
No.
I think that's it. You know, I think people see certain pieces and I get it. They want to connect things. They want to justify, you know, some of the pain that they've been through watching the last 4 years. And there's pieces of this that, you know, I understand, but I think
maybe it's just the subtle dishonesty of it, where you just listen to people and you go, well, why are you lying about where you're from? And why do you act like this? And why does your FBI director boyfriend come out and do like a love letter to you, to the American people with 6 million views over on X? And why did you used to do, like, I don't know, child talent shows in Hollywood? And why do you claim that you're from Arkansas, even though apparently you lived in Arkansas from the time that you were 9 until the time you were 16 when you moved to Nashville to be a country singer? And in the interim between that 9 and that 16, you were doing stuff like this out in Hollywood, which is really embarrassing. Sorry, folks, I found this stuff. I'm going to make you have to do it too. I've been sitting on this. We're about to drop our response to the lawsuit. She sued me for $5 million. This is the girl that sued me. That's totally not a public figure and is totally a legit country music sensation. So say it's her boyfriend. Uh-oh. Is it going to start? Yes.
I am Alexis, and you're watching Talent Child.
That's Talent Child interview.
Yes, I am. I am singing in the show, but I do actually.
She's an actress, she says. So she's doing a talent show. You can't understand because they didn't know how to do audio back then because a child is legitimately filming her. I think she's about 13 or 14 years old in here. She says she's going to go on a talent show. She's going to be auditioning to get a music deal, I assume. This is what you do in California. You go out there and take your kid to Hollywood and have them go out and audition for TV and for movies, which she's done. And then you get her into a talent program to try to get her a record deal. And she's going to sing Drops of Jupiter, which is a really famous country song that was written by not a country artist. To continue that, I just wanted you guys to know the kind of people who did the real service to this nation. Not you GWAT vets, and not you people that have gone out and worked in law enforcement. Maybe you were a doctor, maybe you were a nurse, maybe you responded to people during the pandemic and you didn't wear a mask and you got out there and took care of people that were sick, or you've taken care of the injured, you picked up people that were, in trouble. Maybe you work for a charity or a church. Maybe you're a St. Vincent de Paul volunteer. You're nothing compared to this.
Hey guys, it's Alexis Wilkins, and I just wanted to take a sec to talk about Glitter Magazine's self-love campaign. Now, when you think of the word love, you typically think of loving another person, but I think the whole idea of self-love is to love yourself like you would someone else. Because, when you're talking to someone you love, you try and encourage them and inspire them to do whatever they want to do, and if they put their mind to something, you tell them they can do it. And I think that you should have that same care and respect and appreciation for yourself. So I love this campaign because I think hashtag self-love is something we forget about in our daily lives, and it's just a great reminder that you should love yourself. And find something that makes you glitter in your life, because I think that's what self-love is all about. Have a great day, guys.
I'm cringing. If you can't see, if you're just listening, I'm cringing, and so are you. Find something that feels like glitter and sparkles. No mention of her Christianity and her Christian faith, which is something we're told is really important. No mention of country. Pretty sure that probably wasn't even in Arkansas. What do we think? Was that Arkansas? I don't know. Doesn't sound like she really got that imprint of Arkansas on her. Probably because everything about this poor gal is fake. And I'm not mad at her other than I don't like being sued. And I don't like being sued for for an episode of this podcast, which is in fact pretty tongue-in-cheek, and we tend to be pretty sarcastic. We tend to have like kind of a goofy sense of humor here, so some of you guys will get a kick out of it. Do you know the name of the episode that I'm being sued over? Some of you guys probably don't know. I'll go over to the chat. Probably only one person. We have a chat moderator named Rose. Rose Lopez probably knows the name. The name of the episode that I'm being sued over is entitled Desperate FBI Director Digs Deep into ... John Bolton's Mustache. By that really serious character that said, find something that makes you glitter. I don't know. We're living in a really serious time, and we've got really serious problems in this country, and it doesn't help that we have this guy saying that if you want to ask questions about people who are clearly public figures that are going to go on the news and tell us about sleeper cells that are going to attack Americans, that we are just uninformed internet anarchists, and that we have no right to follow the plane that the American taxpayers pay for. And by the way, he straight up advocated that we shut down and take away from.
Where, and I'm not saying take all their funding. I'm not the defund everything guy. I'm just saying Chris Wray doesn't need a government-funded G5 jet to go to vacation. Maybe we ground that plane. $15,000 every time it takes off. Just a thought.
Minimum.
Can we just have serious people work in our government? The answer is obviously no, and that's why it's our job to make sure that we have less and less and less government. If you are on the left, if you generally speaking align with sort of liberal, just give me a great example. Drop it in the comments. I'm happy to read it. I'm open to having my mind changed. What is it that you think government does really well, and what is it that you love about government? Tell me your favorite government program, and tell me why you think it's efficient and why it uses our money well. I'd love to know what it is. I'd love to have my mind changed. I'd like some information to be able to say, yeah, you're right. Because my overwhelming belief is that government is the worst solution to every problem, including in places where it might be the only solution. It probably is the only way that we can have a military. It's probably the only way that we should, in fact, be doing things like law enforcement. We have to outsource that stuff. And yet, it's awful. It's atrocious. Because you get people that tell you one thing and they immediately get in, and it converts them to another side. And they can't listen to their own words. And apparently, they think we're so stupid and they're so arrogant that they're not actually going to listen and realize that we know what they said before. I do think that's the big problem right now. So, hypocrisy on either side. Let's continue to call it out. I'm going to continue to monitor the use of our jet, which was a lot of money and has been the downfall of many people in our government, misuse of private resources like this, acting like a billionaire when you're not, when you're supposed to be a public servant. That should be something we can all agree on. It turns out that's probably why this story continues to have legs. Is it as sexy as some of the other things out there? Like covering up things or having money coming in from China? It turns out it's not. That didn't even get any play. How many millions of people are aware that Patel had this nonsense happen where he's taken stock options from a Chinese e-commerce giant in the meantime while you've got your president of the United States out there negotiating with China? Probably not very many. I don't even know if Donald Trump knows this. And by the way, this is not just Wired magazine, which leans left. You don't have to discount the source. He talked about it in his confirmation hearings. I'll probably play that later. And this goes to a much broader problem because we are so divided right now. We need to find things we can agree on. I'm watching all the stuff that you guys have seen as well about Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, and I'm going to dig into some of that stuff and the discussion about whether or not it's the Jews, because I just think it's fascinating to watch people who were championing free speech under the Biden administration immediately pivot, and now they want to cancel people. And it's the same thing I've seen people on the left do historically, people who actually valued freedom and liberty, which is a principle that's really important to me. And for those of us that want to be people of principle, you got to stay there. We have to stay in the place of principle. You can lean one way or the other, but you better have some backing behind it. And it better be immutable based on important things that you're going to live on, that you're willing to die for. There's not a lot of things that you should be willing to die for. The ones that you should, they should not have any negotiation. That's my take on it. Have your own thoughts. Put them in the comments below. I will read them. Put them over on Spotify. Put them on YouTube. Put them on Rumble. Share your thoughts. Let's go ahead and get into a discussion about what is the principles that we're willing to actually hold on to, and can we do it? All right, all the articles that you've seen today, anything that you're curious about, if you want to research it for yourself, I'll put them in the comments on YouTube, over on Rumble, and they'll be over at kyleserafin.com. That's it for today's program. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you guys are supporting our channels, wherever they are. You can see them on the screen. Rumble, X, YouTube, locals. If you're listening, join us on Spotify. It's the best. I'm telling you, everybody that switched over is like, yep, thank you for doing that to us. KyleSerafinShow.com is the way you get the cheat code. Otherwise, just go to Spotify, download the app, and then look for Kyle Serafin Show. Easy to do. Like it wherever you're at. Follow us over on those platforms, especially over on Spotify if you guys are doing it. And I look forward to seeing you guys this week. I think it's going to be unfortunately, a dumb week. And we're not going to learn any lessons, but we're going to call them out wherever it is. Balls and strikes, a little bit of commentary, and hopefully some humor. I should give you guys a palate cleanser. There's this guy. He's a former Ranger. He's a very prominent Christian. I think he's a pastor now, too. He's one of you all. He's one of the evangelical types or a Protestant. That's fine. He's not coming and preaching in my Catholic church, but I really, really like John Lovell. He's great. He runs the Warrior Poet Society, and he talks about the idea that men can just do things. That actually exists for all of you. We all have agency in this country, and there are things that are clearly in violation of our natural rights and our God-given rights, constitutionally established rights. And so here's one way you can handle something. He's talking about Glocks being banned in California, but this applies to a lot of things, including speech.
So guys, the state of California has banned Glock firearms, but I discovered a really clever workaround. One thing is, let's sue the state because that's totally illegal. But the second thing is this. Because we have the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, which means you can't make a bunch of little tiny laws which subvert the highest law of the land, which is our Constitution. This is the clever workaround. You use the Second Amendment, and then you just do whatever you want. So like this baby right here, California tells me it can't be in California. It's totally been in California. Will be again. We'll sue the state and we'll just do whatever we want because freedom and America. Yeah.
He's right. Also, he has great hair, and I really wish one day my hair would grow that way, but it won't. I'm just resigned to the fact that I'll have hair envy. John Lovell. Go Army, go Rangers. They lead the way, and that's it. You can just do stuff. My Glock 19 has also been in California, whether they like it or not. America's non-negotiable. If you're standing on it, it is America, so go act like it. God bless all of you guys. Thanks for joining the program today. If you're new, make sure you've clicked that follow button or subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow, 0930, Kyle Seraphin Show. Yeah, we might be a minute or two late, but we're going to bring it for real. Talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.